No, man. Who are you? Let's
Um,
start with that.
my name is Mo The Protagonist. I'm an artist based out of Wilmington, Delaware. I was raised in Wilmington. I grew up there. I've been there my whole life.
What's your favorite color?
Probably red. I think red's a good color. I like gray as well. A nice, like, light gray. It's a good color, you know?
How would you match your personality to the color red?
Ooh. Um, I'm an Aries. I'm very outgoing. I feel like red is a very strong, like right in your face color. Yeah.
Star Wars or Harry Potter?
Ooh.
That's,
Ooh.
oh.
That is a good one. I grew up watching Star Wars. Star Wars will always have my heart. But I watched Harry Potter maybe a year ago now, and I fell in love. I'm such a fan. I probably have to go Star Wars though.
So, you're 23, right?
I'm 23. Yes.
So I have to ask you, like, what was the first Star Wars movie you saw? Like the original trilogy, or
I
like?
definitely watched the original trilogy first, and then I watched one through three. I mean, I've definitely watched it in chronological order before, chronological order, but I definitely watched five through four through six first.
How do you feel about 7 through 9?
I seen seven, eight. I haven't watched nine. I thought eight was kind of bleh. I thought, I don't know. It's just a weird, like, I don't know, just things that were done. I wasn't a fan of. And I heard nine was very like they brought back what's his name, Palpatine. Yeah, I didn't watch it either, man. I was very disappointed. I watched Mandalorian. Season one was very good, and then Boba Fett is kind of like season two, right? I haven't watched Boba Fett. The name The Protagonist comes from when I was younger. I felt like I was never in the circle. I was never the person that people wanted to be or people wanted to look at, and I was tired of being that background character. I wanted to be somebody who fit in, and now that I'm at that stage where I hop on the crowd and everybody's looking at me, heads turn, I really finally feel like I'm fitting the shoes of the protagonist. I've been freestyling and not necessarily like making music, but freestyling on beats I found on YouTube since I was 13, and I just did it with friends, and I always had fun doing it, and I really didn't you know, I always think the story is kind of cool for me, for me personally. There's an artist by the name of Rudy Gambino, and the first time I knew I wanted to make music, I went to, he put on a show, and I watched him perform, and almost everybody in that crowd knew the lyrics to his songs. My most memorable, I guess, air quotations, first song was a song named Trap Mix. Um, we were down at the beach, me and my cousin, and his friend lived down in Maryland. And we went down to his house, we were just bullshitting, hanging out, and, he made music, not anything like, not talking shit, that's my boy, I love, not anything too good. So we went down to his house, I was smoking at the time, we smoked a little bit of bud and listened to beats, and, it was like a cypher rap, and I went first, and it was just such a good time. I feel we were just bullshit and making music, and it was really one of those things that like made me realize that like music should be fun. It's a good time. It's definitely my most memorable for sure.
When did you go from like bullshitting, making music for fun? When did that transition into something more serious for you?
I had a friend who invited me to come to a studio session and just sit in and watch him, and hanging out in the studio was such a good time. We were drinking, smoking, hanging out, and just like I said, sitting in the studio was such a great time. I wanted to bring my art to that booth because of the, you can call it magic, because of the magic he created in it. My first experience coming to a TME showcase was definitely an interesting one. When I first came across TME, they reached out to me on Instagram and asked me if I wanted to do a performance slot with them. And I told them I thought it would be a great opportunity. And I went out, and one of the first people I actually met was Janad. And he left such a good impression on me. The main thing that impressed me about Janad was definitely his personality, the way that he came across. he was very, not hyper, but happy. He was very happy to be there. He came up to me, talked to me, and it was just from what I remember, a great conversation. So, I popped out, and it was just an amazing experience. I always get nervous when I perform. I performed, I don't know, hundreds of times. And, every time I hit the stage before I perform, it just leaves me. The nervousness, not the excitedness, but the nervousness and the butterflies just go away. And I hop on stage, and it's just always a fantastic feeling. It was definitely the biggest crowd that I ever performed in front of. It was, over 120 people easily. And at the time for me, that was the cap of it. I'd only performed in front of 30 to 40 people before. Performing in front of that many people, I was so nervous. I was shaking, and my heart was beating out of my chest, and I knew I just had to get had to get up on the stage and do my thing. I always felt like I was supposed to be the protagonist. I hopped on stage, and I felt like people weren't really paying attention or looking, and as soon as the bass dropped, I remember watching everybody's heads turn. And I did my thing, and everybody loved it, and everybody wanted to talk to me and, talk about music. And, I just thought it was just such an awesome thing that really brought everything full circle. The professionalism of TME really blew me away. The way that everything was put together and, curated just really, I guess, made me happy to see that groups like this can exist in my hometown. I feel like one of the things that appealed to me most about the group, about TME, was not necessarily the business side or the artistry side. It was a beautiful combination of both. I feel like I wasn't trapped in a space where it was too much about business, where I couldn't have fun with it, but it also wasn't going into a direction where I was just having fun with it. I like to get my hands dirty. I like to work. I like to do things that are gonna push myself and push others up and forward.
No, I like that you said you like to get your hands dirty, because let's talk about something that you do on a daily basis. You want to tell us what the day job is?
Yeah, my day job is I work for a small company. I'm a contractor. We specialize in carpentry. I do all kinds of things though, between decks, drywall work, kitchen and bathroom remodels, siding, roofing. Whatever we can really get our hands on, small plumbing and electrical. I'm a very handy guy.
When did you first pick up a tool?
So the first time I picked up a tool was I was very young. My father was also a contractor, and unfortunately, he is not with us anymore. So as I grew up without my dad, I didn't have anybody to really push me in that direction. I feel like I got very lucky. My sister married a very handy guy, and he kind of, mentored me and showed me, if he had a project going on in the backyard, he would call me up and say, hey, you doing anything? Like I could use a hand. And he really just showed me how to do things like that, or how to work on my car. And, I could just say, I'm very lucky to have him. Yeah, I take a lot of pride in what I do. I feel like there's a lot of things that I can do that other people can't. And, that's with everybody and every skill set and every trade. But I feel like with my specific skill set, I can help a lot of people. Even small things, whether it's hanging up a shelf for a friend, or on the bigger side of it, recently I built a studio for the team so everybody could have a chance in getting in the booth, and it wasn't about, time constraints or, things that would push us away from that, because it's accessible to anybody at any time. I feel like building the studio was a great process. I had a lot of fun doing it. I enjoy what I do for work, which, I'm very lucky that I do. So this is a story that I told Janad recently while I was building the booth. I told him that when I was younger, like I said before, I was maybe 16 when I started helping my brother-in-law, and he would always tell me how, before he built something, he could envision it. He could see it in his head. He could see the space after it was done. And I never understood that. I always thought he was crazy. How can you see something that's not there? How can your imagination be so good? And when I was building the booth, it was the first time that I actually experienced that myself. I looked at the space. I had everything, drawn out, and I was looking at it, and I was like, wow, I understand what he would ramble about all the time for hours. that was just one of the things that, you know, made this experience so fun for me, was to be able to understand somebody that, you know, that I wanted to understand, that I have such a close connection with.
I think if you have it, you probably do something right. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, when you do something and it's like you understand something in the process, like, oh, so that's what it means, or like, oh, that's exactly what like I dreaming about, or like
Yeah,
something like that.
it
I
was
think it means you do something right.
it was like a click moment, you know. It
Yeah.
was really like a, you know, cliche. It was like eureka, you know. It was cool. I genuinely, with my whole heart, enjoy the process. You know, there's been, when I was working on the booth, there were many times where Janab would tell me to come down, or would come downstairs and tell me to come eat because food's there, or, you know, whatever he cooked was done, and I was just, I was locked in. I was in the mindset to work, and I just wanted to bust out as much as I could. My passion for music started when I was really young. My father was a musician. He played the guitar. He sung in bands his whole life, and, you know, when he passed away when I was young, I feel like music is something that really helped me get close with him. I have some of his old records. You know, it's like the vinyl records, and I spin them every once in a while, and it's really cool to, you know, he's not talking, but it's really cool to be able to hear his voice, and, you know, I start to know the lyrics of some of, so like I can sing along with them. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, top five artists in no order, and obviously it changes every day for me. And I guess I could say all time, but it's not really all time. It's just it changes day to day. Tekka for sure. Eminem. I probably know the words to at least 90% of the M songs. 50 Cent is another big one for me. I love some 50. Kendrick is another one who's top on my list. I love Kendrick. I think Kendrick is a everything he makes is just a piece of art. It's masterful. I don't know. This one's kind of a hometown hero, but number five, Caesar Rodney. You know, I love to support local artists, and Caesar's music just really it has a hold on me. It's very captivating. Yeah, I mean, like, not to sound like a fucking like a sad boy, but like a lot of my, I know, a lot of my life was like hard times. You know, from my dad died when I was 9. My dad took his life, so he died when I was 9. And then 2 years later, my uncle, who I lived 2 houses down growing up, died. And then my brother died when he got out. He was in jail for a year, so he was gone for a year, and then died like a week after he came back. I was like 12. So like there was like 5 year span where it was like very close, heavy hitting deaths in my family. And you know, I was fucking so mad at the world, and I didn't understand why all this shit was happening. You know, I did give up. You know, like I said, I was doing all kinds of crazy drugs and fucking just doing whatever. I didn't give a fuck. I dropped out of high school. I was, you know, selling shit, and I didn't give a fuck. I didn't care. You know, I got really lucky. I was telling you earlier that, you know, I got laced with the PCP, and that was like a real turning point. And it was almost like that was destined to happen. You know, like I was destined to go through that because it changed my outlook on everything. And I had to figure out, you know, what the fuck was going on with my life.
Did you feel like that was a sign from God?
I don't know. I'm not religious, so it's hard to say if it was a sign from God, or not that I explicitly don't believe in God, but it's like, who am I to know like what's in the afterlife? You know?
All you can really do is just control your immediate environment.
Yeah, you know, what I like to think about it is like I was raised Catholic, so like I do have a lot of Catholic values. I like to think about it like, if there is a God, I try and treat myself with respect, I treat other people with respect, and I treat animals with respect. And I hope that if there is a God, that is enough for me to make it into heaven. You know what I mean? And it feels nice to be a good person.
Like, it sounds probably like really mean, but if something bad happened, if it's not happened, how you can be in this way? For example, if the trauma can give you a good art piece that you can put on a wall and it's cost a lot of money, and people go and feel all the feelings from that painting. Without your trauma, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because like there's been many nights where like I've been up late, like for example, my dad, like thinking about like if my dad never died, so many things would change. You know, I'd never meet the people. I probably would have never met some of the people who, got me into like freestyling and getting into music. You know, like I probably would have never met TME. You know, I probably would have never met like close personal friends. Like it's like crazy. Like one traumatic thing doesn't happen and your life goes on a completely different path.